All right. So, about like 2 years ago, we started a podcast called The Old Timer and the Punk. And basically, what we did is we combined two people's opinions and about music from a certain time, which would be the 60s and and up. Not too much into the 70s, but mainly in the 60s, because it was one of my favorite periods of time for music, and obviously my dad's favorite periods of time for music. The good thing about it is I'm not from that time, obviously, so my favorite was always the 90s. But I feel the same way about the music of the 90s that he feels the way about the music of the 60s. So therefore, we came together with the same respect for the music, just a different, a genre at the time. However, growing up in a household where I um, had heard all of the '60s music as well, that broadened my horizons to it even more. So what we did is we combined two people from different, you know, different musical times, basically, and basically our show is always about the love of the music that we have. So what we're doing today is we're relaunching this. We took away for a bit because everybody's crazy busy the last couple of years with everything going on. But usually people have, they interview different types of people from the industry, whatever. But today I thought to set it off the right way would be to interview my dad because, other than understanding, how much he is well versed in the music of his time and all the various different times, the various different genres, whether it was doo-wop, rock and roll, blues, even moving forward. What's that? Surfing? Yeah, surfing. Exactly. So he's well versed in that. So there's in that short span of time, which is 10 years, there's all these different things happening. So that's why I always found it interesting because it's very similar to the 90s where the grunge movement took place. So he was alive for basically the birth of rock and roll from its genesis, and I was there for the grunge, but I love both of them. So I figured I'd interview my dad because who better than him? Because like I always have said in the past, the guy's like a walking uh, jukebox of information when it comes to music, all from the 60s. And again, he holds the songs and the artists and the music very close to his heart, as I do, hence be why we love it so much. So, without too much bullshitting, which I just did, mumbling, uh, the old timer. Speak, bro.
Hey,
How you doing?
good to see you, man.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back with you in this forum.
Yeah, if you could call it that. I don't know what it is. It's like it definitely. I don't know if it's an office. It's like a mad person's lab, but it
Actually,
works.
it's a museum.
Yeah, it's definitely. I should charge money to get in here. To tell you the
Right,
truth, everything that goes on.
right.
So we were talking about relaunching this again for some time because we enjoy doing this. And again, the idea we had was to talk to you first because again, I always find it fascinating, interesting to learn, talk, and be around people. I don't believe in the word old who have more experience than I do and who
You're
live through
being
more
you're, you're
things.
being kind.
No, it's the truth, especially in music. Because like I said, you've seen from the you we basically love the same people, maybe a little different at certain times, but we the same. I guess you would consider the classics or whatever. But I have the same appreciation well, to some extent. I don't have the knowledge you got when it comes to it, but we also go to a lot of the same shows, which is cool for the most part. You never been you're not into the grunge, nothing, right?
No, I am not.
Never into it.
Never into it.
Not like Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam.
No,
It wasn't your jam. That's fine.
not my deal.
And you didn't dig the '70s too much. You weren't a Zeppelin fan.
No, but there were some things in the '70s that were, okay. My my love for the music started back in I would say around 1955.
Okay.
So if you look at that, that's almost 70 years ago, right?
That's how young you are.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not,
So 1955.
right. So
What's going on in the world?
what's going on? Let's see. In my home, my father was and mother always had the radio on.
Right.
There was never a time that I could remember that the radio wasn't on.
Right.
And
Playing what?
well, my dad was a big bands enthusiast, very, very, very into the big bands. So, Glenn Miller was always playing in my house.
Glenn Miller Orchestra?
Yeah, the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
Okay.
And just, and it was the music of World War II, actually.
Oh, see, that's interesting. So
Right.
World War II had ended in 1945.
5.
Okay. So that music carries over
Right.
into 55. So it's
Right.
10 years later.
Right.
And so you got Glenn Miller playing.
Glenn Miller playing, In the Mood. Glenn Miller playing, every song that you could imagine that he recorded. And there were many, many, many. Tuxedo Junction. He made, Moonlight Serenade, the first song he wrote, and one of the first songs that he recorded. And that's very much into my memory bank because the sound, he had a specific sound.
Right.
He used the clarinet more than any other band at that time.
Right.
They were all heavier with trumpets and things of that nature. But he captured the clarinet, and it was like trombones, clarinets. He was a a genius.
Right. So that's why that music has always been special to you.
Yes, it has, because it was always on in my house.
Right. So
And
you were around that.
I was around that constantly.
Gotcha.
And my mother, God bless her soul, was a Frank Sinatra, devotee. So,
Right.
And we didn't come from, a lot of money, but they would save their money when they heard Sinatra was appearing at the Copa.
At the Copa. Wow.
Right. And my father and her would go, as many times as they could afford to go.
So that was like her favorite was
that
Sinatra.
was her favorite.
So you had big band, you had Sinatra, and radio's always playing. So in 55, it's also what? It's early. I mean, I guess you could say the early stages of rock and roll.
Right. I'll give you a very good, what's the word? A very good marker for the year 1955.
Right.
What happened in 1955?
Well, 1955, that would be.
I'll tell you what
the
happened.
launching of Elvis right around.
Well, he was a little later. But the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, won the World Series for the first time.
Okay.
And I had to eat crow with everybody on the street because I was the only Yankee fan. And
what does eat crow mean exactly?
It means to be.
You can curse, just letting you know.
Okay. Well, I had to eat shit from.
Okay.
From all the guys in the neighborhood.
You weren't a Dodger fan.
No,
you were Yankees
not at
fan.
all.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think you would be.
No, in fact, it's really funny because my grandfather would take my cousin and I to Ebbets Field when we only lived maybe 10 minutes from Ebbets Field.
Okay.
So he would take us on a Sunday.
Right.
And we'd sit in the upper left field grandstand, it's like as far away from the field as you could possibly get.
Right.
I think the seats were $1 or $1.50,
wow,
whatever it was.
$1.50.
Yeah, something like that.
Don't I wish?
Yeah, but you know what? He was a rabid Dodger fan.
Right.
And I would go just to be with my cousin and him, and I love baseball, so here I am. Right. I didn't root against anybody. I just went to the game.
And you're a young kid.
I'm 7 years old.
You're 7 years old.
Right.
Okay.
So, that being said, every time the Dodgers were, and that included doubleheaders on a Sunday.
Wow, that must have been awesome.
Oh, yeah. So
pay once?
Pardon?
Pay once and stay?
Pay once and stay.
Oh, man, I wish you could do that today, man.
And I think, and my grandfather was the greatest guy in the world because he was a child's grandfather, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. He
loved the movies. He loved baseball. He loved taking us to Coney Island.
Right.
And going on the rides and steeplechase and Nathan, the whole gamut.
Right.
So, sitting in Ebbets Field back in the day, with my cousin Joe Perry, whom you know very well.
Of course.
We got into a lot of trouble together.
Right.
Yeah, because we were kind of wild, but he just got us interested in baseball.
Right.
And I saw amazing players. When I think about it, I saw Roberto Clemente playing right field for Pittsburgh. I saw,
Wow.
I saw the end of Jackie Robinson. I saw Roy Campanella. I saw
Hall of Fame.
I saw Duke Snyder. I saw Gil Hodges. I saw Pee Wee Reese.
Wow.
Don Newcomb.
Willie Mays.
I saw Willie Mays, definitely, when the Giants, from the other side of the Harlem River would come into play, the Dodgers. Yeah. Wow. So I was exposed to the greatest players at the time. And of course, it was just a fun time. It was a very innocent time.
Right. So, see, that is one thing that you as a child and I as a child have in common, except for the fact that they're 30 years apart, 55 to 85, when I would be the age you were. No, 87. But there's similarities too, is because in your house you had big band playing, you had Frank Sinatra playing. So in our house growing up, what do we have playing? It was usually, the Beach Boys, Smokey Robinson, Frankie Valli, Elvis. It was Tom Jones. It was Barbra Streisand. Not really, that's not my cup of tea, but I appreciate some of the nice voices and good stuff. So all the good stuff of the 60s, Cousin Brucey. So like you, I grew up in a household where the music wasn't of my time, but that's why I appreciate the way you appreciate big band.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And it only deepens your appreciation for music. I know whenever you see big band stuff come on, you're like, oh, I remember when that came on. And even I liked a lot of big band.
Well, it just widens the spectrum.
Yeah, sure.
It just widens it. And, I am blessed to have been around all of this and still be here to talk about it.
Right.
Music to me was always, I like to call it my safe place.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And I'll never forget, I might have mentioned this, but on my 13th birthday, my dad gave me a red Sony transistor radio. It was about, 6 inches high.
Right.
And maybe 3 inches or 4 inches wide. And it played AM stations, right, at the time.
Right.
And,
only AM.
Well, at the time. And
was it because there was FM? It didn't have that capability to play.
It didn't have it. So,
wow! So you had to listen to a lot of AM radio.
But AM radio
was where it was at.
Was where the music was at. Okay.
Oh wow!
You had 1010 Wins, which is now the news station.
Yeah.
Well, 1010 Wins was right. 1010 Wins was the swinging soiree with Murray the K.
Okay,
right?
that was a famous VJ.
He was like an amazing disc jockey.
Right.
And he had, he was like amazing.
Right.
And then 77 WABC was Cousin Brucey.
Cousin Brucey. Was that also Wolfman Jack?
No, Wolfman Jack was on 660.
660.
But he was a little bit
all
later
AM,
in the
3 AM stations.
Right. And he was a little bit later in coming in. But Brucey, who, as you well know,
right.
On Saturday night, where am I?
Wherever you could be, anywhere, and you're listening to Brucey.
I'm listening to Brucey.
Yeah. What was on FM?
At the time, FM really didn't exist as far as I was concerned.
Wow.
I only, I chugged into the stations that were available. Now, on a Saturday night,
right,
WINS and WABC would stay on all night.
Wow.
Okay, so. A lot of times they would end programming around midnight, but on Saturday night,
right,
I'll never forget it. There would, I think it was WABC was brought to you by DeCarlo land people of Florida. They were looking to sell you land in Florida.
Sponsor? That was the sponsor?
Oh,
yeah. Wow.
They were selling you, swamp land in the Everglades.
Right. Sort of like Glengarry Glen Ross.
Right. So, exactly. So,
yeah.
So, you had to put up with their advertisements every couple of minutes, but I didn't care.
Right.
And I used to put the transistor radio under my pillow, and I would keep it just so I could hear it.
Right, right.
I didn't want my father here because he would come in and say, "Turn off the radio," but it was just me in my safe place with the music.
Right,
Okay,
right. That's cool.
And now it's.
Well, you get emotional. I know.
I do. It's 70
when it ends, and when
70 years later, and when Brucey's over on a Saturday night, I feel sad.
Yeah, you don't feel. I get it. I feel that. Okay. I understand that. Sure.
So,
sure.
And I've had, and I've been lucky. I've met Brucey. I talked to him on the radio a lot.
Right.
He always takes my call. He takes my emails, and he him and I have shared a little bit together. But it's just a great pastime. It's not a pastime. It's the fabric of my life.
Sure. I mean, what else? I mean, think about it. How many memories do you attribute to the music you heard? Like, where were you when you heard this?
Right.
Like, you just went down memory lane about baseball, Ebbets Field. I mean, just listening to the names you mentioned to someone like me, I'm mesmerized when I talk to people such as yourself in your young age range, and I'm like, you saw who? And they'll say, well, I was here. That's the gold standard.
I know. And then on the other hand, my dad would take me to Yankee Stadium. He had he shared box seats with somebody that he worked with. And I think he was able to get 3 or 4 of them a year.
Wow.
And they were all on a Tuesday night when the Yankees were home in the summer.
Wow.
So on Tuesday nights and certain Tuesday nights, we'd be at Yankee Stadium sitting in
right old Yankee Stadium.
Old Yankee Stadium, not the refurbished one, not the new one, the old original Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I only was at the refurbished one.
Okay. So we're sitting on the third base boxes.
Right.
Maybe 3 rows from the field.
Right, right.
And the cost of the tickets
is going to make me feel really
$3.50.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And on Saturdays, my friend Dennis and I, and Dennis, we would go to Yankee Stadium by subway, and for $1.25, we'd sit in the upper grandstand.
Wow.
Down
bleacher creases?
No, down the right field line, going all the way down the line, but all the way up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So,
but you saw it.
It didn't matter. We were there.
Right.
I mean, I was there during the Mickey Mantle years. I was there during the Yogi Berra years.
Wow.
I was there during Bobby Richardson, Tony Kubek, Clete Boyer.
And I remember as a kid, you took us to Donnie Baseball, Willie Randolph, right. Dave Winfield.
The second generation.
Right. Rigetti, what's his name? Oh, God. Go down the all the names. Go ahead.
But, Whitey Ford seemed to be pitching every time I went.
Wow.
I used to tell my dad, did this guy pitch every game? I didn't know better,
Yeah,
He says, no, it's just that in those days, you have to remember, the bullpen wasn't even discussed.
Okay.
You were a starting pitcher. You were expected to go 9 innings.
Right.
Okay. And Whitey Ford, was always on the mat. I mean, the guy had a rubber arm,
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right?
Yeah. So I've been blessed to see all these people that you read about, hear about. I'll never forget this, that Mickey Mantle, there was an exhibition game between the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Right.
And it was in Ebbets Field.
Right.
And my dad took me to the game. And Mickey Mantle hit a home run in Ebbets Field.
Wow.
Not into Bedford Avenue, which, was everybody would hit it over the screen.
Right.
He hit it over the top of the roof of the grandstand, and it went into the parking lot.
Wow.
A block and a half away. It was it was about a 550-foot shot.
Now, being there at that time, young, did you? I mean, not that you always know, because I remember when you would take me to games, you would say you're watching a legend. So if we went and we saw Montana, Steve Young, Jerry Rice, or we saw, we saw Messier, or we went to basketball. You saw Magic. We saw all those guys. Did you know you were watching a legend play?
Absolutely.
Your father said it's a legend, right?
Absolutely.
There. Yeah.
Mantle was already so he was a folklore hero.
Right.
He could hit from both sides.
Like Robin Hood. Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah.
So all of that, and there's a lot of music that I equate, to that time because, I mean, look, I remember. Of course, Elvis. Elvis dominated the airwaves.
That's right.
Okay. the early groups dominated the airwaves. I mean, you would hear, it's funny because when you were listening to these stations all night,
right. That's awesome.
6 hours,
Was it live?
It was live.
It wasn't like a tape show?
No, it wasn't a tape show.
So they had a DJ in there doing it
live? They had a DJ from 12 to 6.
Wow.
So a lot of times during different junctures of the program, so maybe between the 12 and 1 o'clock hour, you'd hear whatever song.
Right.
And then between the 3 and 4 o'clock times, you'd hear it again. They'd repeat it.
Smart.
Yeah.
They wanted you to catch on.
Right. So, and I don't know about, the days of back then where I think the disc jockeys used to get paid off by the record companies.
That happened a lot. Yeah, sure.
Payola. It was a payola.
Sure.
They called it the payola scandal.
But it was win-win.
Yeah. Look,
I mean, unless you were playing something foul.
I couldn't care.
No,
you'd hear Elvis come on, and then after that you would hear, the Mills Brothers would come on once in a while.
Okay.
You'd hear the Platters, the early Platters singing, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, or singing, they had maybe 20 hits, but they were always on the radio. Frankie Lyman, you'd hear Frankie Lyman coming on singing.
What a voice.
What a voice,
So
the Platters were the first group that had a female in the group.
Yeah, I can't think her name. I remember remember the bandstand tape you used to tape when you taped the best of bandstand. She was at like the inauguration.
Yeah. And she went on to become one of Frankie Lyman's 3 wives. He was married at the same time to 3 women.
That's a good movie, Lawrence Tate.
Right.
So did your radio stations? I know you didn't obviously have Sirius. You didn't have any of that. Like
Sirius.
No, I know. You're lucky. I know. I understand. But like today, like radio stations, the way that they're set up, some of them, like for instance, if you play 60s, it'll obviously play 60s.
Right.
70s, anything 70s. But then it gets even more. They kind of whittle it down a little more. So there's rock, there's metal, there's Ozzy's Boneyard. Did your radio station play a little bit of everything?
No, they didn't. At the time, Alan Freed was one of the biggest pioneers on radio, and he gave a lot of people airtime.
Okay, that's cool.
And he was very knowledgeable.
Right.
The most knowledgeable people that I ever heard on the radio, was Alan Freed, starting there.
Right.
Cousin Brucey's an encyclopedia.
How old is he? How young is he?
He's 87.
He doesn't sound any different, and he doesn't miss a beat.
And he's got the enthusiasm. You know what makes me so happy is to see a person who genuinely loves what they do.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a job to him.
Right.
This is his life.
Right.
This is him being on the radio equates to him drawing a breath of oxygen.
Right.
That it goes 1 and 1. I mean, he's an encyclopedia. Last night I was coming home from way out in Long Island, and he's a great interview, by the way, also.
Yeah.
Every week he's on, and he has somebody, from the 60s that he interviews. And
he gives a lot of callers nice respect.
Oh, he gives
them airwave, where you from, what are you listening to?
And when you meet, and I was on the phone with him one night, and he was telling me, he said, you're a real nice guy. Are you married? I said, yeah. He says, is your wife nearby? I said, she's right here. He said, put her on. And he talked to my wife like he knew her for 10 years. But the funniest thing about my relationship with Brucey, he used to go to the Copacabana all the time.
Is it the same one that's still there?
No,
now?
the original Copa on 60th Street there. You had to go down the stairs. And
I've passed it a couple I only say that because when you said Sinatra was there, it wasn't a big place.
No, it wasn't. But it's the legendary Copa. When you got to play in the Copa, you made it, buddy.
Right.
That's it. You're top shelf.
Yeah.
Like Berry Gordy, his main objective with the Temptations, Smokey, all those great groups, is to have them play at the Copa. In his mind, you've reached the pinnacle.
Right.
When you're at the Copa, you've made it.
Okay.
So Brucey used to go there all the time. Because he was, he's always, when they had shows. And he was friendly with the owner of the Copa. Okay, not Jules Padell. He was the front man. The guy was Peter Dorn, who was.
Oh, I met him.
Remember Peter?
Yeah,
You
he's a friend of Van Rose.
Right. And Aunt Ro, my sister-in-law, your Aunt Ro, was Peter Dorn's secretary.
Wow.
And she used to see Brucey all the time, and he used to kid with her. I used to call her Rosie from the Copa.
Right.
So one night I was talking to him, and I said, I think we have a mutual acquaintance. He said, who is it? I said, do you remember Rosie from the Copa? Rosie from the Copa? Of course I remember her. I used to drive her crazy. Well, that's my sister-in-law. Oh, my God. It was one of those moments.
Right.
And I'll never forget it. We were at her house in New Jersey, and it was Mommy's birthday. It was a Saturday night.
Right.
And Brucey was on the radio. And out of nowhere, he goes, I want to call out to my cousin Joni from Howard Beach. She's celebrating her birthday tonight. And she's at Rosie from the Copa's house in New Jersey. And like he went on and on, it was just great. Yeah. So, he's one of the greatest people is also Norm N. Knight.
I've heard the name.
Norm, initial N, N-I-T-E.
Right.
He was another encyclopedia. In fact, he wrote 2 books about rock and roll called Rock On.
Oh, yeah.
I have the
famous book. Sure.
Yeah. And it talked about everybody and everything and who was doing what and here and there and that.
Right.
So,
here's a question: when you were did you, like I said, you had the radio under your pillow so you wouldn't get in trouble? Did your parents like your music?
My parents, they put up with it, but they were into their own genres. My mother would clean the house every Saturday to the Make Believe Ballroom on WNEW.
Good exercise.
No, but that was the radio station.
Right.
Okay? And then they had a Seriously Sinatra station that was only Sinatra music.
Okay, but they never were like, don't listen to that. This is whatever. No, Devil's music, all that stuff.
Come on.
Right. But then again, to be fair, you didn't have, at the time, like you said, it was a very fun, clean era.
Innocent time.
You didn't have like, well, no, you did to some extent. The rebellion was in the rock and roll. Well, it was in the blues, too. It was in the doo-wop, too.
Well, the Rolling Stones were the first rebels, really, that I can remember. The Doors, the Stones.
Right.
People like that. But in 1962, August, the other thing is wherever I went, and you're probably going to find this hard to believe, hanging out with my friends. 1962, I was 14 years old. I was in high school. And I had a transistor radio with me all the time. I never went out without my radio.
You were the first Radio Raheem.
I was the Radio Raheem, right. Yeah. I was the original. And your mother at the time, we were younger and we were dating, and she said to me, do you have a leash for that radio? You always have it on you. I said, yeah, that's who I am.
It was special.
I'm walking down Willoughby Avenue. I worked in St. Patrick's Rectory. I worked there 5 nights a week. I used to answer the phones and do whatever they asked me to do, and from 6 to 8.
Okay.
And I was in high school, so I'm walking down. It was August 17th. I'm walking down Willoughby Avenue, going towards Skillman Street to catch up with my friends, right? And on the radio comes this song called Sherry. And I'm saying, who is that? Right? I never heard a singer with that falsetto voice and the range that was like from his, it went to the sky.
Right.
And of course it was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. And I became mesmerized by them. Okay.
Right.
And, once they started hitting the big time, he just kept banging out the hits, Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Walk Like a Man. It was like bang, 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 bang. One and all the guys in my class in high school were into it too.
Okay.
And
so we had something in common.
Yeah, we were saying, wow, would you, that was like a talking point.
Yeah.
So that was 1962.
Okay.
And Frankie Valli's now 90 years old and he's still performing. But
right.
It's just certain things that hit you. And a year later, I heard, not Catch Away. I heard Surfer Girl.
Okay.
And Surfing.
Right.
And Surfing USA. And, if everybody had an ocean, it was one after the other. And it just, it filled my head. I mean, I was like, holy crap.
Did you, because since you weren't living on the coast, that you weren't into surfing, did you find people that weren't into it because of that?
Yeah, it didn't catch on that fast on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But after like one or two or three of the songs, In My Room and little, and then what they did do, they really appealed to people all over when they did the hot rod songs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Car races.
Little Deuce Coupe, Shutdown, Bang Bang Bang, one after the other, all the car songs, and everybody on Skillman Street that had a car, or everybody was car conscious, right? And when those songs would come on, holy moly! Did you hear that? Shutdown, Little Deuce Coupe, I Get Around, all these crazy songs that were just. I mean, it was made. It felt like, excuse me, that it was made for us. I mean, it just.
Yeah.
They really knew the audience, and they knew how to serve the audience.
Right.
And then you got to realize, I didn't know who Brian Wilson was.
Right.
And then I'm just, the songs never stopped. They didn't stop.
Yeah.
And there were 2-sided hits.
Right.
In My Room on the other side was Don't Worry Baby.
2 mega hits.
I mean, I would go and buy a record for 79 cents in the card store where we lived, and I'd have 2 songs.
Right. So that's funny. You had, which is back now. Vinyl's back.
Right.
So, but you had what? How many songs on one side?
Well, it was one on each side.
That's it? How much was it?
It was a 45.
How much was it?
79 cents.
So 79 cents, you got 2 songs.
I got 2 songs.
You got 2 songs. And to buy the album was?
$3.
Okay. So that's not too bad.
Sometimes $2.79.
Okay.
It depended on, where you bought it.
Yeah.
But, oh my God. And
this is before cassettes.
Oh, cassette,
Right, before 8 tracks.
No, we had a record player.
Right.
And you had a spindle to put the 45s on as an adapter.
Okay, so we were spoiled.
Oh,
we were spoiled.
Forget it. But I'll never forget, I'd save my money and say, holy moly, I got $1. I got to go buy a record.
So would you hear the band on the radio first, and then that would provoke you to go and buy it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It introduced us to it. Because,
right.
And then Dick Clark came on in 1956 or 7, whatever it was, with American Bandstand, which was a genius idea.
Right.
And it exploded.
Right.
It exploded. I mean, then he was able to expose you, because remember, radio back then was local.
Oh wow!
These were New York stations only. The signal didn't go beyond that.
Wow!
I mean, you can't say I'll never forget. I was going to Long Island someplace with my father, and I kept hearing static. I said, "What is that?"
Right. It didn't transfer over.
No. So when he went on the television with American Bandstand, it exposed you to all kinds of artists.
Yeah,
right?
What else was out there?
Oh, I'll never forget what absolutely blew my mind. Now, I had Frankie Valli, I had Brian Wilson, I had the Beach Boys, I had
Doo-Wop.
Come on, Doo-Wop is my favorite. Right?
I know.
I had Eugene Pitt and the Jive 5. I had Freddie Paris and the 5 Satins, and the songs were amazing. To the Aisle, What Time Is It? They kept coming out. The Platters,
right?
Only You, My Prayer,
that's gold.
Smoke It's in Your Eyes, like I mentioned,
right?
So all of a sudden I started hearing about Motown. I said, "What's Motown?" Right? And the first thing I heard was Smokey Robinson and the Miracles singing their first hit.
Okay. Was it
Tell me what it is.
Going to a Go-Go?
No. Come on. My mama told me.
Oh, you better shop around.
Yeah,
Sure.
Shop around. So I heard Shop Around, and I'm saying, who's that?
Yeah.
And that's Smokey Robinson and the Miracles from Detroit.
Was it the sound or the voice?
It was the voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Smokey has, and I've seen him, I don't know, 10 times.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I saw him with you once. He's great.
And you guys gave us, Mommy and I, a present.
Right.
For Christmas or something.
Yeah.
A concert ticket. Yep. And he's better than ever. And he's 84 years old. But when I heard his voice, I'm saying, holy crow. And the harmonies, and then the Temptations. My God. You know, the Temptations were like, they were like from another planet.
Right. So everything was erupting.
Oh, erupting. And the talent. I mean, the Temptations had 5 guys that were amazing.
Right.
Okay. You know, you had David Ruffin.
Right.
Right. Who was the lead singer.
Was he the gentleman that had the bad drug problem?
Yeah, he had a bad drug. And then you had, Maurice Williams.
Right.
Who was the leader of the group.
Okay.
And then you had, you had Paul Williams, who was the heart and soul of the group. He was the choreographer with the steps.
Who was the guy like with the
Melvin Franklin?
Yeah, I always liked Melvin Franklin. He was
and
cool,
then you had probably one of the greatest voices in the history. And by the way, it was Otis Williams.
Otis Williams, okay.
Maurice Williams was from a group called the Gladiolas, who later became Maurice Williams and the
See what I mean? There he goes, man.
And their claim to fame with the Gladiolas was a song that was made famous by, and it went to #1 by a group in Canada, Little Darlin'.
Oh,
the Diamonds.
That one?
Little Darlin', hope.
Oh, wow.
Hope, Little Darlin'. That was the #1 song.
It's in a lot of movies.
Maurice Williams wrote that song, and I said Maurice Williams with the Temptations. It was Otis Williams, but I have to, now that I mentioned his name, Maurice Williams was from the Gladiolas. He wrote Little Darlin', and he gave it to the Diamonds, and then he also wrote Stay. So Stay just a little bit longer.
Dirty Dancing.
Well, yeah. How many groups covered that song?
Oh my God!
Right? And what was the intrinsic or the unusual?
I wonder if she stayed.
I don't know. but there was a trivia question,
right?
For all us trivia nuts about music,
right?
What was so unique about the record Stay? You know, and I was in a contest.
Okay,
I'll never forget this. I was in a contest in Mount Airy Lodge.
Right.
We were on a stage in one of the nightclubs, and they were looking for people that wanted to enter a trivia contest about music, and I had both my hands and my feet up.
Yeah, man, you must have cleaned house.
So I got up there. It's funny. I don't know where I got my nerve, but I did. And the question was, who was Maurice Williams? Okay, raise my hand.
Right.
Okay, who was Maurice Williams? I said he was the lead singer of the Gladiolas. The Gladiolas, yeah.
Damn.
The Gladiolas. And he wrote the song Little Darlin' and gave it to the Diamonds.
Right.
And he also wrote the song Stay. Okay, good. So guys said good. So the next question is, what is the thing about the song Stay that's unique? What made it unique? What was its claim to fame other than it being a great song? I said, that's easy. It was the first song that was under 2 minutes.
Oh, shit.
It was 1 minute and 57 seconds.
Wow.
And the guy looked at me and goes, you're right. I said, yeah, I know. so he goes, all right, okay. And it went on from there. And he was trying to stump me. And then he said, who wrote the song In the Still of the Night? I said, oh, come on, Freddie Paris.
Right.
Of the Five Satins, right? And that was the #1 song in rock and roll doo-wop history in New York. In New York.
Right.
Right. He said, so where did he write the song?
Where? Like physically?
Yeah. I said, I'll tell you where. He was on guard duty in the Army, and he was freezing his nuts off, and he sat down and he wrote In the Still of the Night because it was so quiet and it was so cold.
Wow.
So he
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So he said, okay. And the guy was trying to stump me. He was, he was going. He goes, what city were Eugene Pitt and the Five, and the Jive Five from? I said, they're from New York. What part of New York? I said, Queens.
Wow.
They lived on Hart Street in Ridgewood.
Were you perfect in this?
Yeah, I was.
You went like,
you know what? I want a candle.
You got a candle?
A candle.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't care.
Yeah.
But what happened was the other guys on the stage
gave up.
No, they didn't give up. They said, keep going, because it was like a history lesson.
Yeah.
Right? And I just happened to be.
That's what it is.
Well, I just happened to be lucky that night.
It's a history lesson for sure.
Yeah, and and how many lead singers did the Platters have? 3. Tony Williams, blah blah blah. Holy smoke! Right.
Right. But if you look at your timeline of like from then to now, what you grew up in, I mean, it's a mega history lesson. So like, you saw the evolution of Elvis, Johnny Cash, you saw the British invasion with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Monkees and Herman's Hermits, and then you saw Motown, and then you saw all the good girl groups
of the
60s, man.
My God. The girl groups, I have of course the Supremes were great. Okay?
Yeah.
And the thing about Berry Gordy, who he was a genius, and is a genius. Him and Smokey, Gordy started Motown. He hired Smokey and made him his partner.
Right.
Because Smokey wrote all the songs.
Yeah.
Smokey wrote the songs.
Smokey was like an East Coast Brian Wilson.
Oh, yeah. He wrote the songs for The Temptations.
Yeah.
My Girl.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Oh,
okay.
God, yeah.
And he changed. Instead of Eddie Kendrick singing lead, he made David Ruffin sing the lead.
Right.
And then he wrote My Guy for
the
first lady of Motown, Mary Wells.
Yeah.
And the way you do the things you do for the Temptations. I mean, it was like, going to a go-go with the Miracles. It was, the Tracks of My Tears. I cry when I hear that song. And when they had the song on a Platoon, when they, when
in the movie,
just moved. I mean, Smokey is in a class of his own. Genius.
Yeah.
Genius.
So you add him to that, and then you got the West Coast thing.
So now my horizons are I'm getting flooded.
And were they playing Willie?
No, Willie was strictly country.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you have access to that?
Not really. Not really. Later on, I became the biggest Willie Nelson fan in the world.
I know, yeah.
But no, I mean, my horizons were like, I can't tell you. It was like looking in a down a little microscope, not a microscope, a telescope.
Right.
And then somebody gives you a 65-inch television.
You see the whole.
It's like Magic used to say. When you're dribbling the ball down the court, you can't look. You got to see the whole court.
Whole court,
right?
Yeah.
So I saw the whole scenario. I said, "Oh my God." I was crazed.
And you never stayed in one area. Like you weren't just strictly a Dave Clark 5 fan. You weren't just strictly. There are some people that are like really cut off from stuff that they only consider.
So last night, I want to bring up, I started to talk to you about last night.
Right.
So Brucey had John Sebastian on as his guest.
Love and Spoonful.
John Sebastian and Zal Yanowski of the Love.
Yeah, good band. Good
Zal
band,
is
man.
dead, but John Sebastian is still very much alive, and he's still touring. And he played a collage of his songs after the interview.
Yeah.
Do you know how many?
I think you were saying 10?
I counted 10.
Well, you count the band and you count the single. Remember, he also had a big song, which is We Laugh Now, but it was big. He had the Care Bear song.
Okay. Well,
whatever it's called, about being a bear. That was huge.
Right. But he didn't play that last night. He played, Did You Ever Want to Make Up Your Mind?
Yeah.
And then he played Hot Town, Summer in the City.
Oh, the best.
And it went on and on. Welcome Back.
Yeah, Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Kotter, yeah. So I'm saying to your mother in the car, I'm saying, holy smoke. John Sebastian's list goes on and on and on and on.
And this is something that, think about it, you thought about it now as opposed to all those years ago.
Right.
So it goes to show you that the education keeps going.
Oh, listen, I have to say, I am probably one of the most blessed people that ever walked the face of the earth. And I say that because I mean it. I am blessed. I'm blessed.
Right.
I'm blessed to have the greatest family in the world, the greatest children in the world. I'm blessed because I was exposed to the greatest music in the world. And I took that on as a that was my alter ego, my music.
Right.
Walking around Skillman Street with a radio. Right. Everybody used to laugh.
Right.
But they'd say, put it on a little louder, would you?
Did you ever go into an area that wasn't the best and people didn't like what you were listening to?
No.
Change that?
No. Can I tell you something? We come from Bed-Stuy.
Right.
Okay.
When I tell people that, they're in shock.
Okay. So, I tell many of my friends who are African Americans, okay? And I have many, friends that I grew up with and that I work with that I love to death.
Right.
Right. And I kid with them, and they always look at me and they said, how come you know Frida Payne? How come you know Carla Thomas? How come you know? I said, because that's what was playing.
Right.
On Willoughby, you walk down to Calb Avenue, there was a record store, and they were playing all these songs.
Right. That must have been cool. They played it out there.
I used to sit outside and listen to it.
That's fun. We don't have that no more.
So I grew up in a black and white neighborhood. Right. I grew up, playing ball with all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And intermingling. And I tell my African American friends I'm blacker than they'll ever be. And I mean that sincerely.
Right.
Because of my upbringing.
Right.
I came from a father who was tough as nails.
Yeah.
Okay, your grandfather.
Yeah.
But he was the most giving man you'd ever want to meet. And don't you ever say anything bad about somebody else of their race or ethnicity.
Right.
Don't you ever bring that in his face.
Right.
His nickname was Iron Hands.
Yeah, well deserved.
Okay.
Well deserved.
You didn't want to get hit by Iron Hands.
No, I got hit a couple times. I dig it, man. We couldn't get away.
Yeah. So
speaking of him and other people, because you also liked Dean Martin. You liked Perry Como.
Of course.
You liked Jerry Vale.
Yes.
You liked you said Sinatra. What was another one?
So I not that I want to interrupt you because I'm real good at that, but you said Perry Como. My mother and father were people that would like to go to live broadcasts,
like radio,
television in its infancy in the late 50s.
Wow.
I went to the Perry Como show on NBC.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
I was sitting in the audience. I went to the Ed Sullivan show. Sitting in the audience.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that.
Oh, yeah. So my parents were like they were into that.
Right.
My mother and father used to go to the movies.
Right.
And my mother couldn't drink pineapple juice, but that's another story.
Yeah, I know that one.
Okay. So anyway.
She's probably not happy that you keep bringing that shit up, man.
But anyway, so I remember sitting in the audience and watching the wonder of how they made a television program. Oh, my God. What you saw on the screen was not what you saw in the audience.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I kind of got the bug for that.
Yeah.
And when I grew up to be a man, 1968 Brian Wilson.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I knew you were going to go there with that.
But your mother and I and our friends, Donna and Joe, we used to go to, remember the talk shows that used to be on like in the late 60s? All these crazy talk.
Guy with the crazy eyebrows. What was his name? Tom O'Neill?
No.
Like those, you mean?
No, yeah, but it was like the Alan, not his name. Joe Pine was one of them.
They would have real people on?
Yeah, but I mean, it was staged, but he
was like Morton Downey Jr.
Morton Downey Jr. show.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, I got tickets to go see Joe Pine.
Right.
And I took Donna and Joe with us and your mother. And they had this guy. They came around to us and said, "Would you like to go?" They called it the squawk box. You go up to a microphone and give and come out with something outrageous, so the guy could yell at you. You know what I mean?
You must have.
So I said, "No, I'm not doing that."
You must have killed it.
So they had this guy on that was making absolutely no sense, and the four of us, well, not the four of us, the two of us, Joe and I, were being very rowdy in the audience, in the audience.
Right.
And he turned up and he said, "Those four people in the back, I'm warning you.
Right.
The next outburst, you're out."
Yeah.
So I looked at Joe and he looked at me and we went right back.
Right, just messing with him.
So get them out of the studio. And this was not staged.
Right.
He was mad.
Right.
So these two guys came over and they were escorting us out. And my father happened to be watching the show.
Wow.
And when I got home, he said, did you just get thrown off the Joe Pine show? I said, yeah. He goes, I couldn't, I knew that was you.
I knew your voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's real funny. So those are the kinds of things,
So you used to go to live radio.
Shows. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you still go to concerts, of course.
I could live at Westbury.
Right, you go to all the shows, right?
And I want to give a shout out, if I may, to the last, and you were there.
Yeah.
The last Happy Together Tour show. Now, we've seen all of them.
Yeah, they're fantastic, man. Fantastic.
But this time, I mean, the band that they have in this, and the band's with them forever.
Right.
Godfrey Townsend.
Right, the house band, you mean?
Manny.
Yeah.
Manny he plays three keyboards at once, including a synthesizer.
Right.
And their drummer, I forget his name, is an Italian guy. But you would think you had a concert, you had a 12-piece orchestra playing.
Right.
I mean, they were amazing.
Yeah, they were good. They were really good. They were excellent.
But I mean, the show this year was just great. I mean, Badfinger.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
he was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And of course,
he's all that's left.
Yeah, but the Cowsills are always good,
right?
And I was busting Bob Cowsill's balls.
Yeah,
he was sitting next to me. He was in my seat.
Man.
He was in my because he had friends in the audience before. I said, Bob, I knew it was him. I said, Bob, you're in my seat. He looked at me and goes, gee, I'm sorry. I said, it's okay. I said, now, Bob, I'm very serious what I want to say to you. I don't know if you heard me tell him this.
A little bit.
I said, if you need any backup up there tonight, I'm available.
Right.
So he looked at me. He said, no, I think we have a covered.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Yeah, he's a good sport.
Yeah, he was. I was busting his chop.
Yeah.
But so, I like to bust the guy's chops on the
a little bit. Yeah.
The hosts.
Yeah, I've seen you do that.
Emil Stucchio.
Yeah, that guy with the weird shoes, right?
Right. He used to host all the doo-wop shows, and it had like 5 or 6 groups. And I would always be sitting in the front, and you were there.
Yeah.
When I said to him, "Where's Conchetta Scustumat, your girlfriend?"
He heard you, man. You kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was trying not to laugh.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I like the banter to go back and forth. I never do it with any malice or nothing dirty, nothing like that. Just fun.
Did call him a god soon, though.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
But so. Yeah, I'm really going now. I'm sorry, but
no. So so you, like I said, you appreciated. We were talking about the crooners as well, because I remember growing up, you had a lot of you had the mix of you had the Perry Como, you had the Tom Jones, you had a lot of that mixed in. So you lived through a wide variety,
like I said,
of different. I don't know if you called them. I mean, obviously, there's a difference between doo-wop and rock and roll.
Oh yeah, I mean doo-wop. The doo-wop era was.
That's separate.
Yeah, I mean that was street corner harmony.
Right. Not a lot of instruments.
No, a lot of acapella.
So, yeah.
I mean, I told you the story about Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Yeah.
They would practice in the Bedford Nostrand train station.
Right.
And I'd see them there all the time. And in fact, you'll get a kick out of this. We went to see Little Anthony and the Imperials in Westbury, and we were able to get the front row seats. We were first row, and you could reach out and touch them. So I'm saying to myself, I really have to be good here because I know this guy. I mean, I grew up with this guy.
Right.
I know. So he was from my neighborhood. Little Anthony,
so
Anthony Gordine was from my neighborhood, right? So he starts the show and he's smiling around, talking to people and, just gibberish. And I said, in a voice loud enough to hear it, I said, Bedford Nostrand GG train station. And I noticed he looks down at me. And he smiled, right? Okay, he sang another song and he's young guy. And I said, Boys High School. That's where he went to school.
Right.
And he's looking at me and he's smiling, right?
Think we got a stalker in our house?
Then he sang another song. And I said, Fort Greene Projects, where he lived.
Right.
Okay.
That drew the...
He looked at me, he says, stop it. Who are you?
Yeah.
I said, I'm from your neighborhood, Anthony. And he smiled and he shook my hand.
Wow.
Yeah, So, and I did that with Lou Christie, too.
Okay, you called out his name.
I called out his name, Luigi Sacco, which is his real name.
Yeah, yeah.
And he looked at me, and then he invited me to the dressing room for a picture. He was the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
You know?
So you got a deep appreciation for all these different
I
people,
do,
which
you
is
know,
amazing.
And, but the doo-wop songs, I mean, last night Brucey had, he has a half hour on, he calls it the Love Hour, half hour.
Okay.
And he'll put on, he had To the Aisle with Freddie Paris and the Five Satins.
Right.
One of my favorite songs. First, a girl and a guy have a conversation, and the song it leads to the aisle. They're getting married.
To getting married, right?
And then he had
poor bastard.
Yeah, and then he had You're 1,000 Miles Away.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of all the movies those songs are from.
You're 1,000 miles away.
Yeah,
you got the lead singer of that group. Who was the group?
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this, right?
Right.
I'm gonna blank. I don't know.
Okay. The guy's name was James Shep Shepherd.
Oh, right. I heard you mention him.
He was the lead singer of Shep and the Limelights.
Right.
And then they made a song, You're 1,000 Miles Away.
Right.
And then the big song was Daddy's Home.
Right, right. That was their big hit?
Yeah. And it was under two different names.
Right.
Because he changed groups. But he still was the lead singer.
Right.
I mean, we talked about Eugene Pitt, I think, is one of the greatest voices ever. Ever.
Right.
What time is it? That song was memorialized in The Sopranos?
Yeah, sure. The dream sequence.
Yeah.
A lot of movies too.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. You'll always be good to say, "Oh, I know where that's from," and then you see a lot of songs from that era being replicated, especially in the '60s. That's what I wanted to touch on quick. You then saw the Vietnam era.
Yes.
And you saw the Woodstock era.
Yes.
Erupt.
Yes.
Right.
In fact, I got stuck on the New York State Thruway for 7 hours.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah, I remember. Did you see, like, I don't know if it happened, but did those artists that you mentioned from like the early 50s, did they vanish?
Yeah, it's funny. I was not a drug person, as you know.
Right.
I just didn't.
If you are, you didn't tell me. It's okay.
I never dabbled in drugs. Or, never, ever,
right.
ever. And I'm proud to say that.
Right. Thank God.
Yeah. No,
But you saw the changing of the times.
I saw the changing of the times.
I mentioned that because, again, I'm always mesmerized. First of all, I'm mesmerized by anybody that lived in your era. So it survived your grounds. But I guess more because that's a historic time.
Well, you talk about Woodstock, and I'm glad you did, because it brings me into another phase of my neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. So, you know who opened Woodstock, right?
Yeah, it's Richie Havens.
Richie Havens.
Right.
And you know where Richie Havens lived, right?
Queens.
No. Richie Havens lived on Lafayette Avenue.
Okay. Wow.
In Brooklyn.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Which was 2 streets from my house.
Okay.
And I used to see Richie Havens all the time riding his bicycle.
Did he have the beard?
Yeah. He was like a flower child.
Yeah.
And when he sang Freedom, that was the only song that I liked.
Yeah, you weren't a big. Yeah, you didn't dig a lot of it.
No, I mean, Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Right. Yeah. You dug Jefferson Airplane.
I didn't like their message about drugs, but I think the song that I liked the most was
White Rabbit.
We Built the City.
Oh, that's Jefferson Starship.
Well, same group,
just
Marty Ballin.
Yeah.
Right.
And you didn't dig
Gracie Slick.
You weren't a Who fan.
Not at all.
That wasn't
Not at all.
Just wasn't your thing.
Not at all.
Right. And you didn't dig. You dug John Fogerty and they were there.
John Fogerty's a class of his own.
Joan Baez, you didn't care for, right? I know she's gonna. I hate to say it. Were you a Jimmy fan? Jimi Hendrix?
I respected Jimmy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he was like
Jimmy.
Yeah, he was. I can't hear Jimmy. Maybe.
Okay.
You can.
Yeah. Okay. I
got
it. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I understand that. So again, you lived. Into what you said, the 70s wasn't really. You didn't really identify with that, right?
We
said Zeppelin wasn't your thing. You said like, I mean, the 70s is such a it's a 10-year period where there's so many different things. Like you got, so many bands that just sound like you weren't a disco guy.
You know what? There was a phase.
Okay.
Okay, your mother and I, we got married in 1971, right?
Right.
So the disco era was starting to come in, and
Right.
the bell-bottom pants and the
Yeah.
longer hair and this and that.
Yeah.
But I never left my 60s roots. I would listen to some of it.
Right. Some of it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I agree with that.
The guy, the Sunshine Band, what's his name?
Casey?
Casey and the Sunshine Band
Okay.
wasn't bad.
Right.
There was some of them, the Bee Gees I absolutely adored.
Right.
Bee Gees are right up there.
Right.
And the greatest of all time.
Okay. Yeah, you always liked them.
Absolutely.
I know you like them a lot.
But, nothing can compare to my 60s in my mind.
Right. So you feel the way about the 60s as I do about the 90s.
Right.
We always go back and forth. And, I always say, I thought the 90s was the greatest era of music, but with respect to the 60s, because, again, I mean, how do you top all the people that were in your era? I mean, those are the ones that built the foundation for music. But if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have a 90s.
Right. But think about this. Okay. We had the enduring groups that were there forever.
Right.
Who survived the British invasion, right? The Beach Boys, Frankie Valli,
The Doors. Right.
Okay. A lot of people went down the tubes.
Yeah.
But the thing that people don't realize that the 60s music was built on one-hit wonders.
Yeah, okay? That's true.
We had a lot of one-hit. I mean, a lot of one-hit wonders.
And 2-hit wonders, 3-hit wonders. Nothing huge.
No, nothing that was enduring.
True.
So there was so much music coming down the airways that my head was spinning.
Yeah.
I was almost getting what's the word? I was getting nervous about it. There was so
skitsy.
Much I couldn't listen to it all.
But it also must have given you a wide variety of communication skills with people, because you could relate to, like you said, other types of music. It wasn't just if they saw you for what you looked like, they may have said, well, you're probably into
Lawrence Welk.
Yeah. But then you were able to converse with people and say, no, I actually like this. I actually like that.
I used to blow people's minds, especially my African-American friends, right? I shouldn't. That's a terrible thing. They're my friends. I don't care if they're black, green, pink, purple. I never look at that.
Right.
Who am I? I'm just an ordinary. I'm not even white. I don't know what I am. Right.
A little tan.
No. But if you look at so I never. Race to me is we're all one.
Right.
Okay? But I used to blow their minds when they say, "Oh, you don't know the Four Tops." I said, "Oh, really? I don't know the Four Tops. You mean Levi Stubbs? You mean Lawrence Payton? You mean Obie Benson? And you mean Abdul Duke Fakir? I don't know the Four Tops."
Right. Well, it's like what country people say, you don't know Willie.
Yeah, he said, listen to him.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know the Temptations. Oh, I don't.
Right.
I don't know David Ruffin. I don't know Paul Williams. I don't know Otis Williams. I don't know Eddie Kendricks. I don't know the guy with the deep voice,
Melvin Franklin.
Right. Yeah, I don't know them.
Right.
I don't know them. Oh, you don't know Motown. Oh, I don't know Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. Right. I don't know Gladys Horton and the Marvelettes. Right. Oh, I don't know them.
Right. And you know where you were when you first heard a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you hold sacred a lot of the time.
That's right.
Like if you were at a family party, if you were on a date, if you were hanging out, if you were playing ball.
Right.
That's why it means a lot.
The music was in the streets.
Yeah.
It was in the
there's
streets.
No more of that.
It was in the streets. It was in my soul.
Yeah.
My mother said to me, "I think you were born with a phonograph needle in your brain."
I never knew she said that. Yeah.
She said, "Geez, with all the records, she used to get nuts."
Did they have like? Were they concerned when you were like into like some of the more, I guess, like wilder stuff at the time, like James Brown?
Oh no.
Right.
James?
No, I'm saying like, well, they're like, because a lot of, I mean, he's one of the best, but a lot of people like can't get over the dancing and just like
James
the immense
Brown,
energy.
I think I mentioned this on a prior cast, a podcast, and it's absolutely true. Joe Perry and I went to the Paramount to see an Alan Freed rock and roll show.
Okay.
And James Brown was on the show.
Right.
And he came out, with the Fabulous Flames.
Right. Good band, man.
Oh, yeah.
Hell of a good underrated band.
And he's dancing I said to my cousin, I said, he's got to have a motor in his legs.
Right.
This can't be him.
Right.
But it was him.
Right.
And he used to take off he had cheap costume jewelry that he wore. And he talked about it. He used to take it off and throw it in the audience. He got a kick out of doing it. And I caught his cufflink.
Right.
So he was on somebody's show, and I didn't throw it back. I didn't. I kept it. So, and he was saying, I throw my jewelry out to the people. He said, and then they started throwing it back. And he said, James, you got to be doing something wrong, boy.
Yeah,
you got to be better on
that. Was a diamond. You ain't getting that back.
No, but
man.
he was like, you could not love James Brown. James Brown came from nothing.
Yeah, it was a different thing.
He came from nothing.
Different thing. It was like an alien.
No, he came from nothing.
No, but I mean, like, no one saw something like that.
Nobody.
I mean, we watched that video when he dances backwards on that one foot and then comes
God.
forward. I've never seen anybody do that.
I mean, and I never realized until you made me realize that he was a dear friend of Elvis.
Yeah. They were good buddies. Spoke all the time.
And
they were very similar. If you look at them closely.
And James Brown used to call him my brother.
Yeah.
And I never realized that he was the only person that was allowed into Graceland when Elvis died.
Yeah.
And they told him not to leave.
Yeah, exactly. He got to stay with the body. Well, that's another thing. You saw the evolution, the beginning, you saw the middle, and you saw the transition periods of Elvis. Each time he transitioned. So same thing with Johnny Cash, where he started off Tennessee 3, and then kind of in the 60s and 70s, he went and he was, kind of
with the Carter family.
With the Carter family, and then even later on, so you got to see all that, which is really cool. Because
I start my morning every day when I'm going to work. I'm on the bus. Not every day. I don't go in every day, but the days that I do go in, I have my ear. Again, here I am on the bus with
the earphones. Yeah. Sometimes you'll be talking like, who are you talking to, man? And like, no, you're listening.
And I start my morning every day with 3 Johnny Cash songs.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We talk about this all the time. Yeah, these are your songs.
Yeah. One of them is Sunday Morning Coming Down,
great
which
song.
is
great
maybe
song.
my favorite
great song.
Johnny and Ballad of a Teenage Queen.
Oh, great song. Great song. It's a great one too. Something line.
The rock.
Man, I heard that the other day. I'm like, damn, this is good because he starts off really something. I'm like, damn, he was awesome.
And the other song that they had in the Russell Crowe movie, ba-boom, ba-boom.
Yeah.
I guess things happen that way.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I love him singing "If I Were a Carpenter" with June.
Right. So there's not a lot you don't like.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: the things you don't like, right? The things you don't like, are they because you can't identify it with it, or because you just think it's like for instance, I can't identify when I hear just like there's no music. I'm like, you're not singing, you're screaming. No. There's nothing. Like for me, it's got to be instrument harmony. The voice has got to be good. The lyrics have to be important. For you, what can't you identify?
The only thing I could say, and you're going to probably think that I'm weird, and by now you know that I am.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's where I get it from.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Mr. Strange, right?
Yeah, and Poppy and all weird shit.
So I am not the kind of person that I have a different sense of humor.
Right, like me.
Yeah.
We don't find certain things funny.
Right, like that. I don't find that funny.
Right.
Like when you Sebastian Maniscalco, I think he's terrible.
I know you're not a fan. I don't get it.
I don't get him.
I don't get it.
I don't get this guy.
Right.
What is he doing? He's talking about being Italian. That's old.
Right.
We all grew up that way.
Right.
Yeah, my grandmother made sauce every Sunday, and you could smell it down the street.
Right.
My father would tell me, go out and get a job. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So my ear is wired to my brain a little bit differently.
Right.
I'll know the minute I hear something,
right,
the second, if I'm going to like it or not.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Is it from you think like from the instrument?
It's from having a lifetime of music. I mean, my ears probably are working triple overtime this part of my life.
Right.
Because I never gave them a rest.
Right.
Never.
Right.
And my brain picks up the waves that I identify with immediately. That's going to be a hit.
Right.
That's a great song.
Right.
That's just So,
but I think it's valuable because not because you're my dad, obviously, but because you also, I remember you would have show tunes too. You loved the Phantom of the Opera soundtrack. You liked. I remember you had all that stuff. So you it's not
West Side Story.
Yeah.
What's better than West Side?
Exactly.
I'm a Jet all the way.
Right. So you didn't like you weren't like your opinion is valuable to me because you know all these.
Why is that? Because I was exposed to it.
Right.
My mother and father took me to see The King and I with Yul Brynner on Broadway.
1, 2, 3, right?
Right.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I went to see, I went to see movies when they were opening.
That's awesome.
I mean, so I appreciate it. The Phantom of the Opera blew my mind away. The soundtrack is immortal. It's immortal.
Right.
Okay. I remember I sang in Japan at a karaoke.
I remember you telling me this. Yeah.
I sang Sukiyaki.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to look at it. I knew the Japanese words.
Right.
So the guys that I was with saying, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
I said, "Maybe."
Right.
But I knew the words to Sukiyaki.
Right. When you hear like a lot of stuff, not to like dampen it with like today's stuff, like because I don't identify to today's stuff. I don't know. I feel like I'm on a different planet. Do you feel like it's just not even in your realm?
No.
Right.
My ear doesn't pick it up.
Right. And you pick up right away because you're really good to say. Doesn't sound like an actual guitar. Sounds like it came from a computer. I don't think they're. I mean, you're really good too. They're really singing. They're not singing. You're lip syncing. You're not picking up the words.
Right. I could tell a lip syncer a mile away.
Right.
A mile away.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too. All the shows we've been to, we've been able to like see who really hits the high notes, and
who can't anymore.
Yeah, that's sad. That's unfortunate.
And that's why you have the background.
Yeah, which is okay, but I give them credit for
absolutely. Now I'm going to, before we have to leave, we are very blessed. We're going to be seeing 3 shows in the next 6 months.
Right.
We're going to see Three Dog Night in November.
Looking forward to that. No Chuck though.
Well, Chuck is not in it anymore, but Chuck is sick.
Yeah.
So we're going to see the Magnificent Peter Noon.
Right.
In December.
Right.
He's
excellent. Good show.
He's a machine.
Good show.
He's a machine.
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy.
But I'm really stoked. I'm dreaming about March 15th.
Which is?
We're going to see Burton Cummings.
Oh yeah, that should be great. We saw him once before with the band.
Yeah, 60th anniversary tour.
Yeah.
And I will be reporting to you. I would love to be able to do it from the show, but I can't. They won't let me. But I'm going to probably have to
try and get a video.
I'm going to probably have to take 17 volumes.
Yeah, just to calm down.
Just to calm down.
Okay.
I am going to be off. I'm going to be off the freaking wall.
Okay, so since we're coming down to the end, if you had to pick only 5 groups, singers, whatever, if you had to,
I can't.
Just say you're into. You got to give me any 5. Any 5. It's end of the world, end times. You're in the bunker. They say, here's your 5, and that's all you can do. What? Give me.
I don't know how I could even begin to do that.
That's what's hard about it.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, of course, Smokey Robinson.
Okay.
Brian Wilson.
Okay.
Elvis.
Okay.
Frankie Valli and the Four
Seasons.
Seasons.
That's 4.
Motown as a whole.
Okay, I'll give you that.
The Tops. The Marvelettes.
Right.
And I'd have to include, here I go. I have to include the Ronettes, Ronnie Spector.
Right.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So, I mean, and Burton Cummings.
Right. Now we're going a little over, but I understand.
I know, but you know what? That's where my taste goes.
All right, so if you had to say, I know it's tough for you to do, your top 5. Any artist from your era, any artist. You can pick any artist, top 5. There's no... It doesn't matter if they're country, if they're
okay,
rock.
So you mean in my lifetime?
In your time, in your opinion, what are your top 5? And you know what? Don't. It doesn't yet. We're not even going to number it 1 to 5.
Okay.
Just give me.
So Willie Nelson has to be in there.
Okay, that's your Mount Rushmore. Your 5 Mount Rushmore.
Okay. He's on it.
He's on it.
Okay. Smokey Robinson's on it.
Got you 2.
Elvis is on it.
Yep. 3.
Brian Wilson is on it.
4. Good Mount Rushmore, man.
And just the words doo-wop.
That's pretty good. Just the words.
That's it.
Okay. That's a really good Mount Rushmore. That's pretty solid.
Yep.
That's pretty solid, man. Yeah. Well, I'm happy we we came back to do this because we've been talking about this for a long time, man. Because in the interim, like I said, we went to a lot of shows, right? I know you've gone down a doo-wop hole recently, and we'll watch a lot of the older like stuff that the concerts that we see. But again, it's always good because, like I said, growing up, hear one or two of these, you forget how great they are. And we always talk about when we see them in TV shows or movies, the music is still
timeless,
getting paid. The artists
timeless.
Are getting paid. Yeah, it's timeless. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
It's timeless, man.
Hey, you know what? I enjoy every minute being with you.
Yeah, people like listening to you, man. You have a good voice. No,
that.
they do. They've told me.
You know
They've
what?
told me that.
I haven't. Look, you're very kind to me. You haven't kicked me in the leg.
No, never, man. I'm mesmerized by this because, again, you've walked in places I'll never go. You've lived through times I'll never live through. You've seen things. That's why I always say you saw, when you always say I saw the '68 comeback special live. I'm like, you saw that live.
I also saw the Elvis
from
live.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I can only imagine from watching the movie or watching it. So to see people that live through that is amazing to me. That's why we do this.
And that's why I'm blessed.
Yeah, that's why you're blessed. That's a good way to close it.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Have a blessed Sunday. We're out.
Thank you.
Later.